There's a moment in childhood when you realize your voice doesn't matter. Not because someone told you to be quiet, but because nobody really listened. So you stopped talking. Not all at once, just a little less each time. Until one day, you became the quiet one, the easy one, the one who never complains. And now, years later, you don't even know how to be heard anymore. You don't say what you feel. You don't ask for what you need. And the scariest part, it feels normal. Let me tell you about a girl named Maya. Maya was 7 years old, and she had a lot to say. She was the kind of kid who noticed everything. The way her mother's smile never quite reached her eyes, the tension that filled the dinner table like smoke, the way the house held its breath whenever her father came home tired. Maya felt all of it deeply. And for a while, she tried to talk about it. She'd tug at her mother's sleeve and say, "Mommy, are you sad?" She'd try to make her dad laugh when he seemed far away. She'd tell her older brother when she felt scared at night. But here's what happened. Her mother would say, "I'm fine, go play." Her father would wave her off. Her brother would roll her eyes and call her too sensitive. And slowly, without anyone sitting her down and teaching her this lesson, Maya learned something that would shape the next 20 years of her life. She learned that her feelings were a burden. She learned that her words made people uncomfortable. She learned that it was safer, so much safer, to feel everything alone. So, Maya got quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, the kind that sits on your chest, the kind that turns into a habit, the kind that one day you don't even notice anymore because it has become you. Psychologists have a name for what Maya experienced. They call it emotional suppression, the act of pushing feelings down before they can surface. But I don't want to get clinical with you, because this isn't a lecture. This is something much more personal than that. Here's what was really happening inside Maya's mind. Every time she reached out and was dismissed, her brain made a note. It cataloged the experience the way our brains always do, trying to protect us from pain. And the note said, speaking up leads to rejection. Silence leads to safety. Over time, that note became a belief, and beliefs, once they're written early enough, become the operating system of your entire life. Think about that for a moment. A 7-year-old girl, trying to make sense of a confusing emotional world, wrote for herself a rule. And that rule didn't expire when she turned 18. It didn't disappear when she moved out of her childhood home. It followed her into every friendship, every relationship, every job interview, every argument she was too afraid to have. The child doesn't grow out of the silence. The child grows up inside it. And this is where it gets important, because maybe you're reading this and thinking, that's not me. My childhood wasn't that dramatic. Nobody ignored me. Nobody hurt me. But here's what I want you to sit with for a second. Emotional neglect doesn't always look like cruelty. Sometimes it looks like a household where nobody talked about feelings at all, where we don't air our dirty laundry, where strength meant not crying, where being good meant being quiet and easy and low maintenance. Sometimes the wound isn't that someone told you to be silent. Sometimes the wound is that nobody ever invited you to speak. And so you learned in the most innocent, heartbreaking way that your inner world wasn't something worth sharing, that you should handle things on your own, that needing people was weakness, that asking for help was asking for too much. Does any part of that sound familiar? Maya grew up. She became talented, capable, professionally successful. She was the friend everyone leaned on, the coworker who always seemed composed, the partner who never caused conflict. People called her easy to be around. And she smiled at that compliment because she didn't realize it was also a confession. She had become easy to be around by making herself invisible, by swallowing her disappointments, by laughing off things that hurt her, by saying "I'm fine" so many times that she started to believe it herself. Until one night, sitting alone in her apartment, she felt something crack open inside her. Not a dramatic breakdown, just a quiet, exhausted crack. And the thought that came with it wasn't anger or sadness. It was simpler than that. It was, "I don't think anyone actually knows me." And the worst part, she wasn't sure she knew how to let them. Here's the thing about silence that nobody tells you. When you spend years not using your voice, you don't just lose the habit of speaking, you lose trust in the idea that being known is possible. You start to believe that if people saw the real you, the scared you, the lonely you, the you that still carries that little child's hurt, they would leave. Or worse, they would stay and still not care. So you preemptively protect yourself from that pain. You share just enough to seem open. You get close to people, but not too close. You have deep conversations, but always about them, never fully about you. You become an expert at being present for everyone else, while quietly disappearing from your own life. And here's the twist, and I really need you to hear this. The silence that once saved you is now the wall keeping everyone out. What worked at 7 years old, shutting down, going inward, making yourself small, it was survival then. It was brilliant, actually. It was your mind doing the only thing it knew how to do to keep you safe in an environment where vulnerability was dangerous. But you are not 7 anymore. And the people in your life now, the ones who might actually be safe, they can't reach you. Not because they don't want to, but because the wall is so well built, so invisible, so perfectly disguised as self-sufficiency that nobody even knows they're on the other side of it, including sometimes you. So what do you do with that? You don't tear the wall down overnight. That's not how this works. You don't suddenly become someone who shares everything. You don't force yourself into vulnerability before you're ready, because forced vulnerability without trust is just exposure, and exposure without safety is just another wound. What you do is something smaller, something braver in its smallness. You notice the moment. You start to catch yourself in the act. That split second when someone asks how you're really doing and you're about to say, "I'm fine." Pause there, just for a breath. Notice what's actually true. You don't have to say it, not yet, but notice it exists. Because healing from silence doesn't begin with speaking. It begins with admitting to yourself that you have something to say, that your feelings are real, that your experiences matter, that the version of you that learned to disappear was doing the best she could, but she was working from old information. The people who dismiss you are not the whole story. They were a chapter, a painful, formative chapter, but they are not the whole book.